So the magazine starts with the tour of deck section. This was intended to be kind of like your guide to the ship. So if your blueprint is your map, tour of deck is your guidebook. It explains the technology that's on every deck, the rooms that are on every deck. So we kicked off with deck 1. Obviously, it's a deck we're very familiar with because it's where the bridge is located. So you can see we replicate the artwork of the deck that would appear on the blueprint. So you can see the bridge here, the captain's ready room, the observation lounge. There's a toilet. That's lovely. But there's also other stuff. So there's a computer interface there, which it's not something that you would generally make a big deal of if it was mentioned in the show, but because we're going into the extreme details of what's on every deck, we explored that here. Obviously, with decks such as deck 10, which is a very big deck, it's the widest point of the saucer section. We wouldn't be able to cover every single room, but we would go into as much detail as we could. We would mention all the stuff like 10 forward, crew quarters, labs, all that sort of stuff, and we would highlight key items of technology that would exist on that deck. So it's all kind of like, you know, if you had your blueprint laid out in front of you and you had your tour of deck page, you could find your way around. So it's kind of like a handy sort of guide for you. There's also a few photographs just to bring a bit more colour to the page. To you know, we're all familiar with what the ready room looks like, what the observation lounge looks like, etc. But we felt the need to have these things here just to sort of remind people that this exists, or this set existed. You know, if we're talking about it, we wanted to show it as well. Over the page, there's obviously more text, all in Japanese. A close-up of Deck 1 as the star drive section of the ship explodes in generations. And also here we show the generations bridge. We were focusing on the TV version of the ship because that's what we're familiar with. That's what most material exists about, is the version that we saw on the TV show. But we wanted to sort of say, in Generations, there were enhancements. It was kind of like a refit bridge. There were new stations off to the side. The command seating level was raised. So while we're focusing on what we saw on the TV show, we are referencing the fact that the movie brought added details to certain parts of the ship. So that's Tour of Deck. It's good if you're new to the ship. Over here we have our first critical systems page. We focused on the con, as it says at the top there, and as you can see in this lovely piece of artwork. The text for this article and the artwork were both supplied to us by Mike Okuda, who, as you probably know, he's a very big deal when it comes to Star Trek. He was responsible for a great many of the control panels, the artwork that we saw on Star Trek, the alien languages, the designs for alien languages and stuff like that. And Mike provided us with this wonderful piece of artwork for the con. And his text that he wrote explains how the con works. So if you read this, it basically gives you a license to go and fly the Enterprise, which is pretty cool because who wouldn't want to fly the Enterprise? And his text was brilliant. He gave us annotations to show which all these buttons do, what this XY control panel does. It's just fantastic. It's kind of, you know, you sit down at the con and now you know how to fly the ship, and that's you know, every Star Trek fan wants to pilot the Enterprise, and Mike Okuda tells us how here. Over the page again, we've got more photos. Obviously, a lot of these pictures, you know, we'd have seen these events in the show, in episodes. You know, these sort of pictures we've seen before, but it's always vital to show them again. If you have text that's explaining what these control panels do, pictures just add colour. They're there to just show us something else other than the artwork. It's nice to see, as beautiful as the artwork is, it's nice to see someone flying the ship, controlling the ship here. So that's why we always add pictures as well as when we have these cool pieces of art. Critical systems, like the other sections of the magazine, it would go into areas that we hadn't necessarily seen in the show, so newly created areas. So we would have shown control panels for stuff that maybe something like the Captain's Yacht Launch Bay. We would have shown some control panels from that facility. We would also have explored stuff that we had seen in the background, stuff in engineering, in sick bay, so on and so forth. But we also decided that, as critical as all these control panels are, another element that's vital to the ship is the crew. So critical systems covered as well the role of the different divisions aboard the ship. So we had the role of the command division, explaining what the captain's duty is, what the first officer's duty is, the role of the engineering crew, the role of security, and so on. So we kind of augment the very tech heavy element of this product with the crew who are, of course, as vital to the running of the ship as the con is. So it kind of covered everything that was critical to the day-to-day operations of the Enterprise. Over here we have, this is without a doubt my favourite section of the magazine. This is the apparatus section. I'm nutty for technology, for this cool stuff, and what's cooler than a photon torpedo? We all know what a photon torpedo does. It's fired out of the Enterprise, and generally it blows stuff up. Sometimes, of course, they're reconfigured to operate as sensor probes. So we wanted to use this section to sort of explore the hardware elements, the cool tech. This page, probably more than any other, highlights the different artistic style we used for this project. When we did the Star Trek fact files and Star Trek the magazine for America, we had artwork created using Adobe Illustrator, which works brilliantly and is incredibly detailed, and I think still stands up to this day. For this project, we decided we really wanted to step it up a bit and do something different, and something that would really make Star Trek fans go, "Wow, that's awesome!" So we chatted to our artist, and he said, "Well, why don't we do some stuff in CG?" So everything you see on this page, all these photon torpedo elements, they're all rendered in CG. That's the actual CG model, like they would use on the show. So our artist could spin this around, look at it from different angles, render it out for us in different angles. We could have basically looked at any component of this torpedo, and it's incredibly detailed. If I look here, this is obviously the exterior casing, which we saw in numerous episodes of TNG. We saw these hatches open in a few episodes, so we kind of had an idea of what was inside. When I was discussing this section with Rick, he was very keen to show unseen elements of the stuff that we were familiar with. So he would supply us with pen and ink sketches of interior components. So here we actually have what's inside a photon torpedo. That's the propulsion systems of the torpedo. We have up here the tanks that hold the matter and antimatter. There's even an LCARS control panel just there. We never saw that in the show, because on the show, obviously, they were focused on telling a story, and they didn't have 5 minutes to stop and explain to us how the photon torpedoes worked. And that's a luxury we had here. We can take the time to explain exactly how this works. in addition to his sketches, Rick supplied us with annotations, so we know exactly how all these bits work together to make a photon torpedo work. Another cool thing is, as you can see here, we've got warning labels. Those were created for us by Michael Kuda. I don't know whether you can see, but there's that warning label there, very tiny. That's one of these, and the text on these is completely legible. So if I read the red one, it says danger antimatter containment module. Magnetic containment field must remain on power at all times. Failure to do so will result in immediate destruction of the starship. That's a really cool warning label. That's awesome. That just drives home the reality of a photon torpedo. It's not just a prop. It's a really, really powerful piece of kit, not to be messed with. So that's just like a really awesome page. We did lots of other pieces of technology in this style. I think the second issue had an antimatter generator that's located on deck 42 of the Enterprise. Again, it was something that was never seen. It's mentioned in the technical manual. There's a sketch of it in the technical manual. We fleshed it out in CG. We showed it in all its sort of huge metallic glory with warning labels plastered all over it. We did other stuff. We did reaction control thrusters in this way. We did emergency beacons that are embedded in the decks and the ceilings of the corridors in the Enterprise. So if there's an emergency aboard the ship, crew members can be tracked down and rescued if they're in danger. So all this kind of stuff that just makes the reality of a starship like the Enterprise even more real. You know, we see the crew in the episodes sort of, you know, walking through the ship's corridors, but we were given the opportunity here to show what's behind the panels in the corridors, what's under the decks, and just to make the idea of a starship such as the Enterprise just that little bit more real. So we showed some cool stuff. We rendered all that stuff out in CG. Even things like communicators. We looked at doing a communicator that was open, so you could see the components inside and how they all tied together. A communicator is, on the face of it, it's a very simple little badge, but when you open it up and you've got Rick Sternbach sort of telling you what all these components do and saying, well, this should be this coppery colour and this should be glowing blue, it just makes it feel more real. It's very cool. Over the page, of course, we have more text explaining. You know, we all know the basics of a photon torpedo. It's fired out of the ship and it blows up the bad guys. There's more to it than that. We explain how the various components work together in a bit more detail than the annotations on the artwork. Again, we've got some more photographs. This sequence is taken from the episode Genesis in TNG's 7th season. You may remember in the show's teaser, a photon torpedo is launched from the Enterprise as part of a test, and it goes AWOL, and Picard and Data head off in a shuttlecraft to track it down and return it to the ship. It's very cool. It's a really good angle to sort of see the photon torpedo tube here, and then begin to see it glow, and here the torpedo just bursts out. It's really cool. I mean, you think about it. This sequence is 17 years old, but I think it still looks wonderful now. It stands up really well, and these still images of that sequence complement the artwork of the photon torpedo very, very well. Just to sort of give a bit more an idea how a photon torpedo is launched. And down here we've got the aft photon torpedo, of course, which is located at the very rear of the ship. So that's photon torpedoes covered. We would have done other cards on the actual launch mechanism itself. Because obviously, you know, we have 800 words here to go into the torpedo, but there's a huge element of how does the torpedo leave the ship, and we would have covered that in similar detail with CG artwork. So that's apparatus. It's a very, very cool section of the product. Very much like the TNG technical manual. Just generally, I loved it. I thought it was really cool because Rick was just enhancing what we'd seen on the show and just making it feel more real. So there we go. Over here we have mission logs. The idea behind this is it's basically kind of like an episode guide, but we decided that you can get an episode guide for Star Trek anywhere. There are books, there's Memory Alpha, there's StarTrek.com, and we decided we needed to do something a little bit different. Because this product was focused on the Enterprise rather than the missions or the crew, we decided that our mission logs would be more about how the Enterprise, how it works in the episodes. So we would explore, we would cover when does it go to red alert, how many photon torpedoes does it fire, is it boarded by an alien species, are the shields raised, that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like a more tech-focused version of an episode guide. It covers the story of the episode as well, but it focuses more on the ship, as the whole of this product does. The first one was Encounter at Farpoint. Originally, the regular episodes, there would be one page like this for each episode. Because Encounter at Farpoint was a feature-length show, we decided to go for a two-page article for it because it warranted it. Similarly, with something like Best of Both Worlds, that would have had like a double-length log. We had like a data pad in the corner, which sort of is kind of like a little database that shows starships that the Enterprise encountered, life forms, planets it visited, and any other sort of notable remarks. So, for example, with Encounter at Farpoint, life forms encountered include Q, the Bandai, and, of course, the Farpoint station alien. The mission logs would also have included like a history of the Enterprise construction and some elements between episodes that were kind of hinted at, but we would have expanded on that. So, for example, when the Enterprise returns to Earth Station McKinley after the events of Best of Both Worlds, we would have explained what was done to it when it was being refitted and repaired, what new systems were installed, stuff like that. So it's very cool. It kind of enhancing our idea of how the Enterprise operated. So that's mission logs. Over here, Star Trek Memories kind of takes us out of the reality of the Enterprise as a starship we can visit, and goes into Star Trek as a fictional TV show. So here we have an interview with Jonathan Frakes. Star Trek Memories would cover interviews with the cast, the behind-the-scenes crew, and also would show various pieces of concept art. We decided to have an interview with Jonathan Frakes for issue 1 because he's a big TNG name. He's the first officer. So our idea for this was that obviously we've only got two sides of a card, but over the lifetime of the product, this would build up. We would do 5 or 6 cards for each member of the cast. So in total, you would have an interview spanning 5,000, 6,000 words. So it would build up to be something quite substantial. The idea was that the first card, this one for example, would cover. It covers Jonathan Frakes talking about how he auditioned for the role. For example, here we can see a picture of him with Billy Campbell, who was his rival for the role of Riker. Gene Roddenberry, of course, championed Jonathan Frakes, and of course he won the role. And so he's talking about how he auditioned, whether he was a Star Trek fan or not. He tells some really good little stories in this article, and in subsequent articles he would have discussed the show as it progressed, how he went on to direct episodes, how he went on to direct 2 of the Star Trek films, his role in the Enterprise finale, basically his entire Star Trek career from beginning to up to date. So he spoke to us about what he's doing now. He's still directing episodes of successful TV shows, attending Star Trek conventions, and so on. So it really gives us a good insight into the cast and the crew. I think issue 2 had I can't remember exactly, but we had interviews with Michael Westmore, interviews with Michael Dorn, Herman Zimmerman. We had an archive interview with Michael Piller, who of course was responsible for writing many of TNG's finest episodes. So it gave a really good, well-rounded idea of how the show was brought to the screen and how it evolved and all the key people who were involved in it. So that was pretty cool. The final section is the step-by-step, which it's kind of like how to put your model together. As I was saying before, the model is actually it's simple to put together, even for someone like me who's rubbish at models. So as you can see, there's very little text. This is what you're getting. This is how it all fits together. It's easy. I guess it would get more complex as you get more and more pieces of the ship, but as I said before, it was a relatively easy model to put together and suitable for people of any skill level, of which I am at the lowest. So that's how you put your ship together. Over here we've got a subs page. This is kind of like, if you love this collection, sign up and you can have it delivered to your door. If you sign up for a subscription, you got a nice model of a bird of prey, which was in scale to your Enterprise. Obviously, your Enterprise was huge, 72 centimetres long, and your bird of prey was a lot smaller. So, but then the bird of prey didn't come apart and didn't show all the decks within. But still, it's a pretty cool model of a bird of prey, and who doesn't like a bird of prey? Over here we've got more. I guess this is more sub stuff. This was all done in Japanese. I couldn't translate this for you. I didn't write any of it. So we'll skip past that quite quickly. There's quite a lot of it. As I said, the magazine was gummed. You can see it comes apart quite easily. So I'll stick that together again. The inside back cover. We decided we would show our front cover image again, but without our logo. As I said, we tried to keep the magazine cover as clear as we could to highlight the image, and we just kind of thought, well, if we take the heading off, it's a beautiful image, and if you really wanted to, you could whack this in a frame and stick it on your wall, because it's a cool image. And so the idea was that generally with the part work, the cover is it's disposable. But we thought we could add a little bit of value here, and if fans wanted to build up a beautiful library of beautiful images of the ship, this was how they could do it. So that's our cover image again. And on the back, it's what you're getting in your next issue. So, as I said before, there's the selling face. There's the magazine cover. There's the contents. So, issue 2 included a tour of Deck 2. The captain's chair was the critical system. The lifeboat was our apparatus. That was very cool. That was an unseen element. Rick sketched out an Enterprise D lifeboat for us, and we had that created in CG. Incredible stuff. It was really, really cool. Mission logs was, I believe, the Naked Now and the one after that. And Star Trek Memories was Peter Lauritsen. So that was cool. And of course you got your binder, divider cards, and model components. And so in the next instalment, I will talk you through your model component, which is Deck 1, Deck 2, and a huge chunk of the Enterprise saucer.